one old lady is trying to find someone who can help her in the garden. And so we just put all these requests into these living walls. And every weekend, these walls, they live in our educational hub, but every weekend we go outside and we come to the main square of the city and we put this wall so everyone can see this. And during this section, we also have workshops and festivals, and we also act as guides of the region and so on. So this is the idea I liked most of all, let's say. We have much more, but this is the one I wanted to share with you, and all the rest we have in our Google Doc. So, значит, я сам ovu našu ideju za živi zidovi, gdje stavimo ne samo projekte naše, a gdje stavimo još sve želje od okoline, da, gdje živimo, to sam htjela detaljno da dodajem za naše online i offline ljudi. So thank you so much, and let's continue with the second group that was offline as well. Yes, it's us. Hello, guys. Okay. All right. Okay. Yes. All right. You know, today we started like maybe 10 years later, and then in our co-creation of the feature, we found out like there are lots of trees, also lots of like recycling and like a self-production and exchange, and no borders, actually no boundaries. And then we discussed about like skills, what kind of skills would help us to get to this point, like to create such kind of a feature. And then after talking about the skills, we talked about the education system or educational practices that will help you to be donated with those skills to get to this point, to create such kind of a feature. So we can say like today we mostly focused on the bigger picture, and with the help of the yesterday's results, actually. Yesterday we mostly focused on the hub in Montenegro and like the based on the values, what kind of practices or what kind of things the hub that will be built in Montenegro can help to create this, you know, feature altogether. So we have checked if like our values and the other things that we mentioned yesterday match with today's picture, bigger picture. And we found out yesterday we mostly focused on the promotion of the hub in Montenegro and including the local people to be much more known. But for this bigger picture of the future, I think like we thought the promotion of the hub and to the other, you know, parts of the world and encouraging the other people to create their own hubs in their places is very important. And then we realized it's very important to share experience to help the other people to like establish their own hubs with the same values. And most importantly, we found out like volunteering programs, because volunteering programs, if the hub in Montenegro can include more volunteering programs to send people to other, you know, eco-villages all around the world or to other institutions, other hubs, and then can accept some other people to establish the hub in Montenegro and to contribute to the hub, then it would be very important, especially for Montenegrin teenagers, for the need to communicate with, you know, other people in other parts of the world. And also these volunteers can help this hub to be known to like in the other parts of the world. And that's for sure there will be some other people who will be motivated to establish such kind of hubs. So it will help to create the bigger picture of the future. Yes.
I just want to say it was very, very fun and nice experience to do this with these amazing teenagers, and also with our online guest. It was amazing. It was fun.
Thank you. And finally,
I would like to add that we had Oltiana from Albania and Konkan Koch from originally from Cameroon in our team, and it was really powerful input. And maybe we will cooperate together with them to really realize the future.
thank you. And we switch to our online team, Russian-speaking online team. Who is the volunteer to speak?
Я отключаю микрофон.
Please.
Лика, у нас Илья докладывает.
Мы уже докладываем. Русская команда. Соответственно, мы продолжаем наше развитие идеи Smart City, образовательного города, который учитывает время года, сезон, локальное положение точек в нем и тот темп, в котором живут люди. Есть которые местные на постоянном жительстве, работают удаленно, и приезжие, которые дают удаленно. Есть туристический поток, который постоянно напирает, обновляется посезонно. Соответственно, город, который нам видится, в нем, когда гуляешь по улицам, проходят периодические праздники, где показывают чужие национальные традиции, и ты можешь в них участвовать в игре, одеться в костюмы, сделать те же самые действия, ритуалы провести и узнать историю, как все это появилось, откуда пришло и зачем вообще вот этот ритуал он нужен и какой фактически смысл несет. В школах нету замков, заборов, открыто. Есть списки открытых проектов, инициатив, к которым можно присоединиться. Люди показывают, какие ценности для них важны и что они в городе готовы делать, это ценности воплощая. Уделено много внимания прогулкам, созерцанию, медитативным практикам. Пространство в виде кафе, они подстраиваются под людей. Работники могут приходить на обеде и вместе в формате живых библиотек, умных кафе, проекций, делать короткие презентации и обсуждать важные для них темы, которые цепляют, в том числе соотнося с действующими проектами в городе, в которые они вкладываются, и готовя выступления более крупного формата, чтобы вот это продвигать. Приглашаются мировые звезды в образовательной индустрии для конференций в контексте соотнесения их докладов с реально развивающимися проектами в Черногории. Как эти знания могут прямо сейчас помочь сделать эти проекты лучше. Как и сказал, чтобы все это развивать, используются вполне конкретные существующие сейчас практики. Это живые библиотеки, это смех, созерцание, атласы различных практик, которые отрабатывают когнитивные искажения, потому что одна из ценностей этого города – это развитие общения взаимопонимающего, когда люди спрашивают, что они чувствуют у друг друга, какие у них потребности. Это значимо. И даже у детей спрашивают, так, что они хотят рассказать, чему хотят обучить взрослого, меняя роли, меняя позиции и не чураясь этого. Коллеги, друзья, добавьте, пожалуйста, к моим словам. Ну, похоже, все.
Лика?
Микрофон. Что у вас там за противоречие это было? Вы так и не сказали, а я прям уже извелась от любопытства.
Это, вот, мы спрашиваем у детей, как нам жить. Соответственно, это разрушает в нашем виде классическую, ну, иерархическую семейственность, как она представлена. И, собственно, ценность этой семейственности в таком виде, она страдает, отходя от классической черногорской, вот как нам видится.
Мы попытаемся понять, то есть противоречие в чем? Что у вас сначала была иерархическая картинка, но она порушилась или наоборот?
У нас то, что в первый день было как сильно, это семейные ценности. Вот старый уклад, старый порядок – это как очень сильная сторона. То, что хаб получается, он приносит трансформацию, изменения, и эта ценность, она, ну, отходит от своего исконно классического вида, как она, ну, передавалась долгие года, в такой более, ну, в динамичный формат. Все так же остается уважительность, но она проходит уже дальше, между людьми распространяется. И опять же идет, ну, не только это, скажем так, любовь к младшему поколению, но и сильный упор на то, чтобы воспринимать их позицию как ведущую вот это к будущему развитию, к формируемому будущему.
Окей, спасибо большое, мы поняли. It looks like that all groups presented the results of their works, although they are in online documents or on the walls right now, and probably they will be used for future prototyping and making a hub here in Montenegro and maybe in other places, because we talked a lot about importance of sharing experience. And now we'll have the final speakers, the final sharing experience session with Konkan Koch, Anastasia, and then the final speech on ecosystemic leadership from Pavel Luksha. Anastasia, Konkan Koch, are you there? Right?
This is two different people.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I just don't see. Yeah, Anastasia, I see.
Yeah,
You're here. We don't hear you yet, but you're here. And yes. So yes. So is it okay if Konkan Koch will speak first and then Anastasia, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So please, Konkan Koch, Joshua, Better World, Cameroon. We give you the voice.
I guess we are connecting from different parts of the world and creating already an ecosystem in education. And I am from the part of traditional education, because this is where I was born and educated in this kind of system. I have also the experience of combining this education with Western education, because I was born at the time when there was still colonization in my community, and we were forced to learn, actually forced to abandon our natural traditional education, which was working very well for us, because at that time there was abundance. The environment was very conducive for learning. We didn't have established schools, but we had youth circles. I'm a product of one of those circles because I went through a rite of passage. At the age of 13, I was initiated into the club of elders. Some young people in the community are selected either because of, I don't know, special things that they come into in the world. For me, it was because of my name, and my name, I have grown into it. It is the community space of getting groups, peer groups, and connecting in our society. The old people are actually the libraries of the village. They gather the young people around the fire and they tell stories, and they introduce the history and teach about the gods. For us, the gods were the physical nature. I think so there is something like God is seen through physical things, or like physical things the another side of God. So beside being spiritual, we can see God in the tree, in the water, in the stones. And this kind of education for me was very grounding. I didn't have too many questions and fears about the future. I have come to see also that this could not have been sustainable, because for us, the world was just this limited space. We call it a spiritual forest because it is the home of the spirit, where we have to respect them. That is already respecting biodiversity. So we are transcended into a new system where this microcosm of a system is now feeding or fitting also from a much larger macro, which is now a global culture. I would like to say how I have put a balance between the Western religions that were forced onto us, and I've also put a balance on the modern tools of learning that came from the foreign culture. So trying to balance, I see the gaps in a sustainable ecosystem, that the education that is oppressive, that is capitalistic, that is forced onto the people cannot create a better world, because people are not better because of economic systems, because of education systems, because of legal systems. The wound that people need for healing is a kind of conflict resolution. I would call it peace villages, which could be the microcosm of what we are building through this conference. That is to say, the different cultures or the different aspects of education can bring about this healing. It's about interconnectivity, interbeing, because we are violent to the environment. We are not letting the environment be. As human beings, we have become gods. So it's interesting opportunity at this time after what COVID has taught us. I think the lesson of COVID is not to drive us to go more artificial, because it's now about artificial intelligence. We have completely cut off from the natural intelligence, which flows naturally from the earth and brings the healing. And my fear is that artificial education will drive us into more pandemics and into more apathy about community life, where we are already too separated. I don't know how long I have to talk, but there is a lot that we gain by learning to connect again with each other and let the love, natural love for humanity and for all creation to fuse together to create a cohesive, coherent, and compassionate world, which I think is the better world. This is why I started an organization in 1996 called Better World. That time I was talking about Cameroon, but this concept of better world, it's everywhere, it's on all lips. So there is something that we have the capacity to improve, to become better. And there are no better tools than learning from each other, inspiring each other, becoming volunteers to this kind of concept. There are already a lot of experts, but how do we bring this together to interact with nature, with food systems, with water systems, with vegetative systems, with trading systems? Because the aspect today is not to force something called aid for development. The people are the biggest resource. And this is the education that I think that I can contribute from my experiential learning through working with young people with whom we created the Better World Cameroon to complement the system of education that was lacking for us.
Okay. Thank you very much. I don't know about others, but it actually touched my heart. It's not so easy to combine somehow the Western education and worldview with need of I would say spiritual and not only work but being connection. It's a hard and a really urgent task for us to find this balance. And maybe also we have some such different speakers today to find a balance between different approaches. And I want to invite Anastasia to continue to tell about their work with the future as we work today with the future images. Anastasia, please.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So, starting to demonstrate the screen, and I hope you all see it. My name is Anastasia Starostinskaya. You are already acquainted with my colleague Anna Titova. We're both from the Kruzhok movement. And well, the Kruzhok movement is a community of technology enthusiasts who are trying to build what we call the practices of the future. So this is a really important concept for us. And I also think that you have already heard something about it from Anna, and I will try to speak a bit more about it and how we're trying to build the future with children. So first of all, the concept of these practices of the future goes from the question, the future, what is it going to be? So it is very common to predict the future and to wait for the future. So it will happen someday, and then you will live in it, and you will try to assimilate in it and to live in it somehow. But we suppose that you can be more proactive in the question of future. And it's not only just to wait for it and to wait for different scenarios and to wait if what the path will the mankind take, and if we will manage to overcome the traumas of the past or not, if we will change our relationship with the biosphere and with the technosphere or not. And we can try to practice the future, to prototype it today. And so we have 3 steps of how we can do it. And the first one is about imagining the possible variants. And it recalls strongly with what Lika said today before the laboratory. So first to see what variants are possible, and then to choose the desired ones, to understand which of them are desirable for you personally and which are not. And then try to go to the future that you believe in, that you want to go in, and to prototype it today with your own life, and try to find friends and colleagues with whom you can prototype it today, and settle up projects that will try to lead us to the future that you want. If you want some also understanding of the meaning, so we believe that a practice of the future is somehow a system level innovation, a new practice of thinking, acting, and being aimed at implementing values, new values, and new worldview. And so we call it practice of the future in 2 different meanings. First of all, that you try to practice it today, to prototype it. And the second is that these are the practices that will come in the that will be normal in the future, that will change the practices of the present, and they will spread widely, and these will be the norm and the normal way for us to live in the future. So who are those practitioners who are trying to practice the future? It was also I heard today several times that the future is not for individual, is common, and that there also can be different futures at one time, and I totally agree with that. And we are talking about communities, so those mixed adult and children communities that are starting to prototype the future, that first of all imagine the future that they will that they want to live in. And here you can see, well, the image of the centaur, also this mythological creature that we were talking today in Russian, and so with the horse body and the human's brain and the human's head. And this is, for example, a very important image for us of how technosphere and artificial intelligence can co-live with human being in the future, that the way that it that the human still is the main guy here, and is not trying to make the artificial intelligence decide what we do next and how we live. And but at the same time, we have this artificial body like of the horse that can enforce human being both physically and cognitively. And also, well, the second large image here, for example, is about the city farms and how they can be created, and also in some new systems of how we can product food, and how the cities can be reorganized so that we can co-live with nature and not struggle against it. And we strongly believe that, well, the practices of the future can be built in communities of enthusiasts, and mostly in these children and adult communities. And we call them Kruzhoks. Kruzhok of the practices of the future. In Russian, Kruzhok means circle, and we refer to many circles that we can see in the past, such as, for example, Zhukovsky aeronautical Kruzhok. So it also started in Russian Empire and with just a group, a bunch of kids and students with their professor who also didn't know how to build airplanes, but then they grew up and greatly influenced the formation of aviation in Russia as it is. And through generation, it actually opened the way to the space. And this is the way of those Kruzhoks of the practices of the future that we believe in, and that can go through generations, because the practice of the future is not about just tomorrow or 1 year in the future. It's about generations. It's about planning for 50 and 100 years ahead. And actually, also, we believe that we can't go to the future without young people, because if you try to build some practice, some new way of life and prototype it with you, but then you will actually die, and then it won't go to the future if you don't have any youngsters who can also provide it into the future, who believe in it, who continue it. And that's why if we try to build a new world and just give it to our children someday in the future when we build it and say, okay, now it's built, then they actually can reject it, and that won't be the world that they would like to live in. And that's why we believe in co-creation with them and in planning the future also with them. And the whole Kruzhok movement is a community of technology enthusiasts of different ages. We have a lot of different events for them, and we have about 100,000 children who are taking part in different events, who are participants of Kruzhoks, and also about 10,000 adults who are mentors for them and who work in big companies and corporations and educational companies and help children to gain knowledge and to cooperate with them. We have different projects through which we try to share our values, and first of all, the value of practicing the future and prototyping it. And one of our main project is project schools for children that is also called practices of the future. They are devoted to urgent problems of today, and there we try to get some image of the future with them and try to create projects that are considering new technologies and at the same time the consequences, the social consequences of those technologies, because we understand that technologies are just an instrument, and we can't go to the better future if we just go technology positively or technology negatively. So we need to think about social consequences, about how those technical projects can really shape the way of life. And that's what we're trying to do with kids from different ages, like 12 to 18. And we do it for 2 and 3 weeks, usually working with experts and on their projects. And also, another one project is an engineering Olympiad for school children and students that we hold in different themes, in different topics, in order to involve children in new technologies and also in projecting the future and into a responsible way, in a responsible attitude towards those technologies. Both in project schools and engineering Olympiads, we work with teams, with Kruzhoks and also with project teams. And I also very, well, it was very great also to hear about the value of teaming that was heard today several times. we have some other projects like International Makers Festival Rukami, and Rukami means hands, and so it's like a makers festival that is also involving into responsible projecting, dealing with new technologies. And we have an academy for mentors then who then hold their own Kruzhoks and project schools, digital platform talent, where we started to hold all those projects that our children are creating. And also one of the new projects is the Almanac of the Practices of the Future that I'm leading. And one of our main project is the Global Protopia Map that you have already seen, as I understand. So just briefly, maybe for those who didn't hear it, say that we created a global protopia map. We conducted about 100 interviews with people from different countries and from different areas, and we we found out 4 areas of practice there, and marked more than 30 practices and more than 150 communities of practice. And we hope that it will continue to broaden. And now it looks like, well, like this picture, but it's interactive, and the boat goes from up to the bottom of the screen, and you can see those islands of different areas of practices of the future. So we're trying to find how we can live in a different way that is more preferable for us, about the habitats, how the cities can look like, how the economy of the future can be organized, how the management and governance systems can be organized, and how the human itself can live in the future, considering the artificial intelligence, considering the body practices, considering the health care system, and all other practices that are that can make us human plus the human of the future. And we decide that we understand that there are different scenarios about the future, and there are also really negative scenarios. And a lot of people, while they're talking about the future, are talking about some apocalyptic images. And that's why we chose 3 core values for us. It's thriving human, fair systems, and alive planet, that make the triangle of coevolution of human, technology, and nature. And this triangle is very important for us. And when we were analyzing the practices and the communities, we were appealing to these 3 core values. Well, Anna told me that during the discussions, some of the viewers of readers of this of our texts on the website told us that our values here are like, we think that this is the only way of the future. Well, this is not the only way of the future, but and we also marked and mapped on there a lot of different practices. They have their own views of the future, but when we tried to shape this map of the future, we didn't want some apocalyptic variants and scenarios there. And that's why we think that these 3 core values are like really important for the humanity, for all the humanity, if we really want to go to the future and not just stay in the present or even go to the past. Because just if tomorrow just comes, it doesn't mean that we are in the future, right? We can be still in the present with all those mistakes of the present and mistakes of the past. And it's really important, as I think, to take the good things from the present and from the past, and also, well, to take the bad things, to remember them, but try to build another, well, something different, because future is always about different. And that's why we need to have the understanding of the values that we want to come to. We also added a slide about Almanac as a hub, and what we're doing now. We are continuing the research, and we will be happy if you want to join us in it. And if you want to be to get your practice or your community on the map, you can write to us, and we'll be happy to put you there. We're also opening a discussion club. It starts in the Facebook group that, well, I think Anna will put it into the chat now. And also we are now carrying out experiments with different formats of how we can talk about the future with kids and with children of different ages. So I already told you about project schools and Olympiad, etc. But mostly they're about projects, and we think that we lack, as the whole system of education in Russia, for example, we lack different formats of how to talk about the values of the future with one another. And now we are also creating games, some table games and role games where we can talk about those values and try to shape our images of the future. And we also try to make experiments with all media formats, for example, with different videos and text. And we also will be very happy if you want to join us here and try to find a good way to talk about values of the future with children. So this is the end of my speech, and here are the contacts, and I will also share it in the chat. And if you have any questions and suggestions, we'll be happy to hear it now or lately. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anastasia. I think it will be better to, if you have any questions, just to find Anastasia contact. She's in our own chat, Telegram chat of the conference. Yeah, and we will share all the contacts after the conference to registered participants, so you will not be lost. And now I'm proud to introduce the final speaker of our conference, Pavel Luksha, on ecosystemic leadership. And then there will be a big lunch break and the final open space session where you can propose your topics and or discuss topics proposed by others. And then we will close our conference with a little feedback and closing session. So now, Pavel, if you are ready, I invite you to take a word, please. Is Pavel here? Pavel, we checked, you are here. So please come.
How is he named here? I don't see him.
Okay, I will ask Pavel once more because he was here just a few moments ago. And probably it's a good time to fill a cup with tea or water or anything else. And for now, I can add that after the lunch, we decided to have separate online and offline sessions. So online sessions, a session of open space will be moderated by Oxy and offline by me. But we will meet again in the end to present the results of open session discussions or even projects, as if there will be any discussed. And it will start at 4:00 p.m. And now it's definitely time for Pavel. Yeah, please, Pavel.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Well, I hope you are moving towards a really exciting last day of the conference. And I really anticipate to hear what are the results of these 3 days. I asked Igor to start the conversation on the topic which I find really essential for making sure that things that you are discussing will not get lost in space, to make sure they are really get implemented. It is the question of organizing a team that will lead the change, that will bring it into reality. And I wanted to share a few thoughts about what could be some dimensions you need to explore when you start mobilizing yourself to be a change leader in education, and also what it means for you to pull the leadership team that will enact this change with you. So first of all, in terms of this change, I wanted to highlight that we are really talking about a number of different and coexisting models of leadership that currently exist in education. So a very common model is when we look at someone who is, for example, a leader of a school, or a rector of a university, or a teacher in the classroom. They are all leaders, of course. They're doing something to bring change, but they're mostly involved in the process of keeping the system in place. They are basically replicating certain functions of the existing system. When they talk about bringing change to the system, they are not so much interested in philosophies. They're interested in something that really works. So they are looking for tools that are that can be brought into their practice and so on. And they are not, apart from maybe few leaders of this kind, they are not very much interested in system level change, because this is, let's say, too far from them. The second type of leadership that we can encounter is very common, and probably I think most people in this conference would resonate with this role. It's the role of a system change leader. Someone who sees, for example, that we need more of project-based learning or nature-based learning, or for example, future awareness that needs to be brought into education. So all of us are also, apart from our, let's say, work as educators, we are also doing some elements of this system change. And usually when we talk about the system level change, we are acting in project-based logic. So we try to create project, we try to enact it, we have certain, let's say, outcome. We know how to manage projects because this has been in place for, as an approach for organizing change, it has been in place for many decades. The new role that starts to emerge in our society right now, and also in education, is the role of ecosystem organizers. We call them weavers, we call them ecosystem gardeners, we call them ecosystem tribalists. They take a different position in the change process. They start to see the system as a whole. And from that perspective, they are not as engaged with specific changes that they want to bring into the system, as much as they want to transform the system as a whole And that can only be done if they engage with others, if they support others, if they look for connecting opportunities rather than, let's say, driving their own innovation. So this means that they have to bring a totally different type of leadership. Some call it evolutionary leadership, ecosystemic leadership, and so on. So we'll talk briefly about this later on. But one of the particular, let's say, traits or qualities of these ecosystem thrivalists is that they change the perspective. They start to look at the system as a whole. They start to look from the systemic level, which means that they start to see connections. They start to see how different, let's say, players in the system can relate to each other. And what they can do in this role is, first of all, they can identify, create, nurture communities of change leaders. They can, these people need some unifying logic or some unifying process, so they can help shape the vision for the communities. They also can start to connect existing communities between themselves and catalyze new projects. Very often, this type of people, if you meet them in real life, or if you are one of them, you will easily recognize that they wear not one hat. They not only have one identity, like I'm a school leader. I'm also part of expert council here, or I am a part of such and such community, or I am a leader of this platform. So they wear a number of hats in different communities, in different networks, in different organizations, in order to become like a living human bridge, to connect these different realities with themselves. Apologies. So the next thing that is very important to remember, that if you identify yourself as an ecosystemic leader, you need to think about yourself and your project from different perspectives. This is based on our experience and what we have seen in many cases of ecosystemic change projects all over the world. Leaders in these projects really talk about 3 levels of purposes that they connect with. So one purpose is, of course, something that they see as a real change they bring to the society. For example, they say, we want to improve talent in the region. We want to equalize opportunities and make education more accessible to bring more equity to it. But they also see the ecosystemic project as something that creates an environment for themselves, their community, their friends, their family. And this is a different logic where they do not do a project for others. They do not separate themselves from this living thing that they try to enact in the world. This is where I think a very important shift is happening, because a lot of traditional, let's say, industrial mindset leaders, they do one project, another project, third project, but they don't associate themselves with this living process that they are going into. Whereas ecosystemic leaders, they really live through the project. So they do not separate their reality, their own, let's say, development, their own development of their networks, their family, and so on, from what they do outside. So it's not really separated. They just bring their mode of living, way of living into the world. So we'll come to that later. I call it a system being. It's a different way of enacting with a system change, because you are doing the system change with yourself. Last but not least, it's very hard to bring this system level change unless you see why it's needed on a very high level. So you have to see yourself as part of that global movement that is already happening, and you see yourself as some kind of transformation that is needed, that is called into being by our current state of development of our civilization and the planet, that invites us to bring this different change, this different way of living, way of governing into the society. So all 3 levels usually are present with the team, and if you are part of the team, or if you are the leader of the team, you need to identify all of them and constantly remind yourself, why are you doing the project? Because this is often get lost when you, for example, start engage with some large corporation or some investor, and they start to push you towards certain purposes, let's say, that are very technical and project oriented, and you forget why you're doing this. So you have to remember for yourself why this project is so important for you. And this comes when you connect to the other two levels I'm talking about, the personal one and the global one, the world-wide one, the planetary one. There are a lot of things we have to remember. I probably will skip this and the next slide, explaining them in too many details, but I wanted to highlight a few things. When we were scrutinizing projects that are bringing change through ecosystemic leadership into education, we see that the most essential thing that they start with is a cultivation of a certain type of culture. And this type of culture is quite different from what we normally see in traditional organizations that are hierarchy-based, oppression-based, and so on. It's really important to cultivate a different, let's say, relational pattern. And remember that you are bringing something that is more, let's say, lifelike into the reality of your own team. So culture is like the core of this whole process of enacting an ecosystemic project. Also, when we look into the question why so many ecosystemic projects don't really reach a proper scale, why they fail, we have identified that perhaps the #1 reason for the failure is the fact that they are not able to establish proper collaborative relationships. And it's really very hard, if we think about it in practice, to establish and maintain these relationships, because we have to constantly kind of reassure each other, support each other, take care of each other. And our, let's say, our modern society does not really support this. We are more in the, let's say, transactional type of interaction or relationship is more normal in our society currently than a loving, supporting, caring type of relationship. So we have to kind of swim against the tide and bring this quality of support and trust and enabling and empowering into ecosystemic projects. Otherwise, they don't really reach their potential. So in many regards, creating ecosystemic projects is about cultivating the right type of relationships within the team and outside of it. So if we think about what really makes project ecosystemic, it's a different network of relations. It's much more horizontal type of relations, and it's the quality of these relations that can be much more authentic, integrative, trust-based, and open. So these things, these let's say factors, are essential if we think about what it means as for us as leaders to bring this change into reality. It's not only about my idea or my innovation that want to bring it to life. It's about how I relate to everyone around me and include their vision and include their perspective and connect with them and move together with them as a community. I know I'm quite a bit preaching to the choir here because many of you are actually doing this in your real life. But it's important to remember when we scale up and start to look for new team members, it's important to keep, let's say, these things in control, that we have to pay attention to relationship quality as, let's say, #1 dimension. So, sorry, I have not been able to translate everything I can see now. The leadership that invites this type of relationship building is actually invites us to change the position of a leader. We are usually looking ourselves at leaders when we think about leaders. Leaders are some people that, let's say, at the top of organization, they tell everyone what to do and so on. In our case, we are reversing the model of our leadership. We are talking about leaders that are empowering, leaders that are supporting, leaders that are leading from behind, leaders that let others step in and do what they need to do, rather than be constantly in the front of the process. So for us as people who want to bring this change, it's really important to learn how to empower others, how to elevate others when we work with them, not really recognizing they are like tools for our idea. They're not. They are living beings who collaborate with us and with whom we can co-create what we want to see in the future, which means that we need to learn how to be with the flow, how to be with these people, how to connect with them constantly, because people are changing and we are changing. So this quality of hosting the space and leading from behind is one of the key things that we need to cultivate as ecosystemic leaders. And of course, that also calls for some unique competences that we need to learn how to cultivate within ourselves. Like, for example, we need to see a lot of projects in our field, not just one project we are focused on, and help curate them, encourage people to do new things, cultivate what they do, and learn how to connect these projects with each other so they start to operate in synergy, in alignment with each other. We need to learn how to organize let's say, the successes and comfortable and friendly spaces. The spaces where coincidences can happen, let's say blissful coincidences. The idea of serendipity, as some of you may know, is the idea of a blissful or benevolent coincidence where some people occasionally meet each other, but something beautiful comes out of it. What we learn is that serendipities are not just occasional. We can organize them. For example, by making a conference such as this one, we start to meet other people and recognize, okay, we are part of the tribe. We can do a lot of things together. Let's do that. Also, we need to learn how to let go, because sometimes we get attached to this project or this idea we've been nurturing for so long, and we were helping it to get off the ground. But as ecosystemic leaders, we are learning to refocus, because maybe that thing has already grown up, like a child that has grown up and needs to go into the world. We don't need to protect them anymore. We don't need to tell them anymore what to do, because they're already grown ups and they're in a totally different stage of their development. Same thing with projects, same things with teams. We need to let go of things that are already mature enough to go on their own. So it's really important for us to recognize when we have to do that, to make the project process more alive. Of course, that requires us to change the mindset. I hope that Lika has been exploring this topic with you for a while, but I want to highlight that this is an idea of transition from an egoistic mindset where the world around me is just in service of what I need as a person. That is an egoistic mindset. In the ecosystemic mindset, we are looking at the world as a web of connections, and we are part of this beautiful web of life, where then we are let's say, equal to everyone else that is around us. There is a very interesting concept that is on one hand very ancient, but is also very modern. It comes from Jainism, and it's the idea of seva as a new role for humans in this ecosystem. That we as human beings are not at the top of that hierarchy, telling everyone what to do and when to live and die, but we are really in the service of the whole ecosystem, and we can support the whole ecosystem, the nature ecosystem or the human ecosystem, to thrive. Which means that we need to learn how to be that quality, how to move from only thinking about the change to feeling the change, which is so needed, to enacting, to embodying the change, which is what we call system being, to learn how to really be the change we want to see in the world. And this is maybe my last slide, and my encouragement to you to think about these questions as you move on with your projects. Some of you have created these hubs and think about them as maybe attraction point in the whole, let's say, network. So when you think about the hub, it can only be enlivened, it can only operate if you have a proper group of people who can organize an ecosystem around it. So ecosystemic thrivalist is not one single role. It's a combination of many roles that connect with each other to form an ecosystemic team. At the heart of that team is the people who really want to bring the change. So they are change makers. They bring the change with themselves, by being the change they want to see in the world. But they also need other people. They need people who will provide them with ideas, who will give senses, who will think about the future or the possibilities, sense makers. They need people who will be connectors or hosts, who hold the space for things to happen. People who act as designers and capacity builders that are helping, for example, to train new people or to design certain systems that can hold this change process. And people who are storytellers, storytelling is one of key thing, because you need to engage more people in the ecosystem. So that means that you need to connect with these people and make your story attractive for them. So storytelling is very, very essential to bringing the change into reality. So this is my message to you, and thank you for your attention. And if we have some time for questions, I'll happy to answer them. But the main thing is, let's think about who we are, each of us, in the process of change that is happening. And that's what I want to encourage you to do.
Thank you so much. I just want to emphasize that I even cannot find right words to say, to express thank you to everyone was here, like personally. Само ću da zahvaljujem svih ko je došao sad do nas, zato što to je bil neka izuzetna priča sa vama. I just want to thank people who came online, and for us it means so much, because you know, we even could not imagine that you are the same open people and the same crazy people, I would say, that could find, you know, could react so fast and could find your time. And now we all are discussing that, oh, such an amazing people from different parts of the world. And this is really amazing. I can imagine how tired you are and what an intensive work it was. I hope that it was not just for us good. I mean, it wasn't just for Montenegrin Educational Hub, but I hope that you all could find something good for your projects and for your cooperation. So I just want to wish you great days and great summer, and let's try to be in touch and to continue our work together, because this is amazing what we can do together, how great people you are. So just thank you once again. And so we are waiting for everyone here in Montenegro. We continue with the project and let's stay in touch. And so some words from Igor, because he was the one who actually collected and gathered all of you. So thank you, Igor, for this chance of being together and get acquainted to everyone.
And I want to thank you once more, Anastasia, Konstankoha, and Pavel. We have now a break, and we will digest everything from this session, both interactive and speakers' presentations. And the speakers are over, no more speeches at this conference, but the conference is not over yet. And after the lunch at 4 o'clock Central European time, we'll gather for open space, and like any of you online or offline can propose a topic you want to discuss with others. It could be something really important, because if we're so tired, as Nadia said, we have only motivation to discuss really important things. So it will be like the last possibility, and then there will be a closure of the conference. So thank you. Now it's lunch time, and we'll see each other in 2 hours.
Спасибо и до встречи. Thank you and wish you next time.
See you.
Thank you. See you. Hvala.